Hello everyone out there, Real Sports Talk Network up in here. So what's good on the internet? What's good in life? I'm Akeem Balaam, aka Li495. Follow me on Twitter at Li495Akeem, or follow us on Facebook. You can find our Facebook page. Of course, I'll put the link in my description, even though if you watch our videos, you probably already know where it is. Okay, enough of that. Let's get to the real stuff. Alrighty. You've, of course, been watching the NBA playoffs, of course. I've been watching the NBA playoffs. We've been all observing this. And this Pacers-Heat series, to tell you the truth, this is really exposing how much the Miami Heat miss Chris Bosh. I mean, there's no reason that Roy Hibbert, I can understand Roy Hibbert was named to the All-Star team this year, was an Eastern Conference All-Star, but let's face it, the Miami Heat are being exposed without Chris Bosh. Their interior presence is essentially nil, and they lost that game 3. It was an absolute blowout. Dwayne Wade, believe it or not, had only 5 points, and he's a former NBA Finals MVP. Come again? There's no excuse for that. If you want to talk about LeBron James butchering free throws at the end of Game 2, we got to talk about Dwayne Wade and how he messed things up in Game 5, only scoring 5 points. The Indiana Pacers are proven that without Chris Bosh, the Miami Heat are more like a 4 seed than they were of a 1 or a 2 seed. They talk about how the Miami Heat are the perennial favorites, but the Chris Bosh injury is really exposed them interior. And as far as the Indiana Pacers are concerned, they're proven once again that they are not afraid of this Miami Heat team. They're proven that they can go right there up and down the floor with them. And I'm sort of rooting for the Indiana Pacers to win, because I would like to see the Pacers back to prominence. And wouldn't it be something if the Eastern Conference Finals turned out to be Indiana versus the Boston Celtics? Larry Bird versus Larry Bird, the team that he's on right now and currently running, versus the team that he played on and won all those championships back in the 80s with. So that would be interesting to see if indeed it got to that point with the conference finals. But you got to remember, Dwayne Wade is probably not going to lay another egg like he did against the Indiana Pacers in that Game 3. And quite frankly, I was not at the game because I would have had the eggs to show it to you, but he's probably not going to do that again. And LeBron James, I think, is going to show up big time in Game 4, and I think they're going to tie this series. I don't think that series is over, even though they are being exposed without Chris Bosh. On to the Thunder and the Lakers. I'm predicting, of course, that the Thunder are going to win that series, but the Lakers, I think, just prolong the inevitable by eking out that Game 3 at home at the Staples Center. Of course, Oklahoma City got both of their games that they were supposed to get. Even though the Lakers, the Thunder, you can say, played their worst game out of all the games that they've played so far in the playoffs, and the Lakers still couldn't get that one out. And how did the Lakers win that game? It's simple. Free throw shooting, free throw shooting, free throw shooting. Kobe Bryant had 18 free throw shots. Kobe Bryant hit 18 free throw shots. The Lakers were 41 out of 42, and I think the Lakers had 42 foul shots compared to the 26 or 27 or 28 that the Oklahoma City Thunder got. You can say that they got home cooking all you want, but hey, it doesn't really matter as long as you're hitting your foul shots, and LA certainly did just that in Game 3, as that series is now at 2-1. San Antonio and the Clippers, that series is looking more like it's not going to go any more than 5 games. San Antonio, once again, impressive wins in Game 1 and Game 2. I think that's going to be over in about 4 or 5 games. And what about that Boston Celtics and Philadelphia 76ers series? The fact that the Sixers were able to come back at one point in that Game 4, the Sixers were down at their home floor by a whole 19 points, and they still came back on the backs of Andre Iguodala. The fact that they were able to come back and pretty much stop the Celtics and put them in their place, that told me that series is going a full 7 games. And I thought Boston was going to win, but I'm not too sure if they're going to blow leads like that. That can be confidence blowers, but hey, they still got Garnett, Allen, Pierce, and Rondo, so you never know what's going to happen when you're playing those guys. They're still going to be very tough for the 76ers to try and overcome. But I think that series has indeed been extended out to 7 games. So as we are indeed approaching halftime, and I think that's the first time in a while that I've actually acknowledged it like it's really some important thing. But anyway, on to the fact that Kerry Wood, believe it or not, is retiring from Major League Baseball. And it's sort of the Kerry Wood story in Major League Baseball is somewhat of a sad story, but he was able to come back and have a productive last few years of his career. For a while, he was the Cubs closer, believe it or not. They inserted him as a closer because for many years he was a starter, and of course his signature moment came in the first year of his MLB career when he struck out 20 Houston Astros, tying a major league record that was set once upon a time by one Roger Clemens. So Kerry Wood, that was his signature moment. He ended, believe it or not, with a strikeout. He faced only one hitter against the Chicago White Sox. The Cubs lost that game by a score of 3-2 at the friendly confines of Wrigley Field, but Kerry Wood faced only one batter, and it is very fitting that that last batter he faces in his MLB career does indeed result in a K. So certainly Kerry Wood riding off in the sunset as only he will. But I believe that in a larger capacity, he will most likely still be involved with the Cubs, probably in a larger capacity in the future, most likely in some type of managerial position. On to some other stories. So I mentioned the NBA playoffs. We mentioned the stuff about Kerry Wood and the fact that he retired. I want to get to this Colin Cowherd story. Now, you probably don't know initially what I'm talking about, but Colin Cowherd, on one of his radio shows this past week, insulted hockey writers, saying that most sports organizations, like say ESPN or NBC Sports or CBS Sports or Fox Sports, they send quote-unquote young and cheap writers, i.e. those that just came out of college, and those are the ones that they send to cover hockey games. Huh? Come again. Now, I will admit, even though I do watch a lot of hockey, it's probably fifth or maybe even sixth on my sporting interest. I rank baseball as 1, football as 2, basketball is 3, soccer is 4, NASCAR at 5, and maybe hockey and maybe NHL as 6. I will admit that right now. But somebody needs to tell Colin Cowherd a little something about this little-known network in Canada called TSN. He also needs to be told a little bit about this other well-known network in Canada called Sportsnet Canada. Oh yeah, and I also would encourage somebody to tell this guy Cowherd about some so-called young, cheap personalities like Doc Emmerich, Don Cherry, Darren Dreger, E.J. Raddick, and even a colleague of his that he happens to work with at ESPN. Her name is Linda Cohn, and she's a rather big hockey fan where if she was listening to that, I would imagine that she probably took some offense to the idea that only young, cheap writers are hired to cover hockey games. So once again, Colin Cowherd putting his foot in his mouth, once again, just like a lot of the people at ESPN, or it could be that he's just a little bit mad once again because hockey is starting to get ratings again. You know, Colin Cowherd, word to the wise. You're losing your partner in crime, Michelle Beadle, to NBC, and you think you're still going to get ratings on your new 4 p.m. show? Huh? Come again? Ain't gonna happen. People are watching Sports Nation for beads, not for you, Colin, so get out of here with that. And speaking of NBC, last story I want to mention was NBC announced its Olympic coverage. Its upcoming Olympic coverage that it's going to do in London. Of course, it's going to be spread all across NBC, NBC Sports Network, MSNBC, and CNBC, and also Bravo Network. And Pat O'Brien is returning after a hiatus in Beijing. He wasn't around for the Beijing Olympics in 2008, but he will be back to cover the tennis portion from Wimbledon of the upcoming London Olympics. All those events will be on Bravo. CNBC is also going to have hours. MSNBC, I believe, is going to have something like almost 160 hours and almost 300 hours on the NBC Sports Network from 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then they'll just hand the baton, if you will, Olympic reference, to NBC in prime time. So NBC announcing its Olympic coverage as well on my mind this week. So NBA playoffs, lots going on with that. Kerry Wood's retirement, NBC's announcement of its Olympic coverage, and Colin Cowherd, another ESPN personality, dissing hockey. So as if anything is new with that. So rate, comment, react, reply, add, and subscribe. Once again, thanks for joining me for once again another edition of 10 Minutes on the Clock. Who knows what this upcoming week will bring? Most likely more playoffs talk from the NBA and also a lot more Major League Baseball, and also getting closer and closer once again to the Olympics. I plan to have more of that on future editions of this here very show. So until next time, I'm just one guy talking about nothing. Real Sports Talk Network, 10 minutes on the clock, LI495. See you on the internet someplace. See you next week.